Hey, it's Anthony and Tucker bringing you your lender update. So let's dive right in.
All right. So what we're looking at first is let's talk about some good news, and then we'll get into the rest of the market. But it's a little bit of a mixed bag. So first off, looking at what's going on at our under contracts and our solds, we're up 25% in solds year over year. That's a great sign for June. So that's a really good sign to show, hey, hopefully you guys are getting those applications and they're coming to you guys. But we're also up 12% under contract. So there is good news. We are up both in year over year and for the most part month over month for most items. Even our year to date, we're up, even beating last year. It's just that difference in the inventory, which is still going to be our main point of focus here. Is the active inventory is really what's throwing it off, because we are beating our under contracts compared to last year, and we're beating our solds compared to last year. It's just our inventory situation.
Mr. Optimistic over here will give you the good side, and I'm going to give you the bad side. The reality is this is actually great for your buyers right now. 20% more inventory on the market. Prices have actually fallen a little bit. Hopefully, you're using some of this data to help have the conversations about how this is a very short-term temporary thing, how this is not consistent with Boulder County, how this happened in 08, 9, 10. The reality is this is a very short-term blip. We'll kind of dive into why. I think number one, the most important thing is when you're looking at inventory, there's 1,650 units on the marketplace, 735 of them are in the city of Boulder. This hasn't happened since like 2010, 2011. I mean, it's way more inventory than we're used to, but also it could be so much worse, right?
Mm-hmm.
In '09 and 2010, we had like double this inventory at one point. So really, this was kind of as things were winding down during the last recession that this happened. Here we are kind of winding up still, right? And it's not incredible. The downward pressure, though, is real, right? There's enough inventory out there, and we're listing enough homes every month that buyers truly have the upper hand in almost every single situation now, except for like $400,000 to $600,000 detached houses.
Yep. And there's those few that are really well priced that get a little bit more competition, but even then, it's a mixed bag out there. So looking at our month supply of inventory, right? That's our relationship between, hey, what's going under contract versus what's out there. So if nothing else went under contract, how long would it take for us to run out of inventory? Of course, Boulder right now, our higher price points, we're sitting at 6 months. This is the highest number we've seen in a long time. And what I really want to focus on is generally NARS says, National Realtor Association, they say 4 to 6 months is balanced. Really here in Colorado, and especially our market in Boulder County, really about 3 to 4, 3 to 5 is considered balanced, if not even buyer favored.
Man, I don't know. I think 3 is like the number.
Yeah.
And, we've been watching anecdotally, or not anecdotally, we've been watching the data to what would kind of lead to this. And we've been watching the concessions data, right? And concessions are at like 60% of deals under $1 million right now. That's like unheard of in
Yeah.
all of the front range.
And they're double
So
digit, and they're up into over 10,000,
$10,000 on
around
average or
10,000
so.
on average. So
Yeah.
they're massive concessions. And so what this is really saying is prices are falling, both attached and detached. But we look at our month supply of inventory, and this is what's driving prices down. Is there's just such a
Totally.
surplus of inventory compared to the buyers. So for the buyers on the fence, we keep harping on it. You're not going to get a better time with this amount of inventory, this many options, and this motivated of sellers.
Exactly. Now, when you look at it from days in MLS, the days in MLS are a lot faster than the month supply of inventory would dictate. So, if your buyers want a nice house that's buttoned up and it's priced right, they may still be competing for it, right? Or they at least have to look pretty consistently and put them under contract. And sellers are in that position are still getting close to top dollar for the house. It's all the other stuff where all the opportunity lies. And I happen to think that there is a lot of opportunity right now and that everybody should be jumping on all of the opportunity. Now, there's opportunity in many ways. So let's kind of look at it by price range first. I think this is where we can kind of see just how extreme the market can be. If you're at 2.5 million or over, there's 200 units on the market, 12 sold last month, and that is a lot more than we had a year ago selling. And this is the most we've ever seen sell in our luxury and ultra luxury markets. So that part of the market is doing stellar if
Yep.
you are one of those homes that are really dialed and priced correctly. Now, the hard one, and I think any of you that are selling jumbo loans are feeling this pressure right now, that 1.5 to $2.5 million market is struggling, right? We're
Yeah.
down 19, 20%. And those are really tough segments because cost of money is still really high. People are just, they're kind of, we don't know what's going on in the Dow. We don't know what's going on with whatever uncertainty. It's kind of crippling their behavior, right? But then everything under 1.5 million seems to be business as usual, slow and steady. People that are acclimated to the rates are the only ones in there purchasing.
Mm-hmm.
But this isn't going to change anytime soon unless interest rates change, right?
Yep.
Buyers are hamstrung, and until something changes, they can't change their behavior.
And because of the massive amount of inventory, we're missing those trade up opportunities, right? For a long time, there's this nice trade up opportunity. Hey, you could still get a decent dollar for selling, and then you could really get a deal on this higher end, moving up in the in the price bands. We're not seeing that as much right now because it's hard for those people with the golden handcuffs to get rid of that house that may not fit them, get that bigger home because the interest rates just aren't helping them, and they can't sell their house for as much as they need. So as we look at this,
Yeah, this
Anthony,
is a
go
good
ahead.
one. So this is detached. Tucker, you're more than welcome to talk about this, but I think the easiest way to describe it to your buyers is just the lower price point. There are more buyers that qualify. And as we get higher in price, less and less people qualify. So sellers are going to sit on the market a longer and longer time, and there's more competition, right? When you look at days on market, though, check this out. Tucker, you described
Yeah,
this very well.
I mean, you look at our days on market, and it's all across the board. How do I look at this graph on the far right and say this doesn't make sense? Well, it's because those that are priced right go under contract fast, and the ones that are not selling aren't showing up in our data because they're not selling.
Well, and it's
This is
condition
based
driven
on
too, right?
sales. Yeah, and it's our conditions of the market. So when we look at our days on market, it's really hard. I see 18 days on market. That's not right.
At 3 million or 3+ million with
That
18
just
months of
means the
inventory,
properties that went on
right?
market went under contract quick, closed quick, and they're the ones that are showing up in the data. So what that means is buyers out there, you as their lender, help them. Stuff sitting on the market, make an offer, even if it's
Right.
disrespectful. And in other times of in the last 10 years, if we said, hey, that offer would be, almost insulting. Now's the time to make an offer. And then
I
we look
agree.
on our left side, our month supply of inventory. Once again, it's a function of cost. We can see how much faster the market is moving as a function of cost. What surprises me is that our 600 to 800,000 and our 800 to a million is relatively about the same. So that's a good sign for those folks in that just under a million and that mid upper market for your standard household.
Well, I'm going to give you the attached side of this and give you the less than optimistic view. But I think the one thing you need to know right now is when you're working with buyers on attached property, you guys all know this. They're very difficult right now. HOAs are struggling to keep them insured correctly. It's hard to lend on them because of God only knows what rules, reasons, all the things are changing. Well, because of that, there's like 5 to 6 months of inventory, and people are buying them for under what they're worth, right? So that's putting so much downward pricing pressure that prices are falling in the attached market. But the craziest part about that is they're still selling fast if they're buttoned up, if they're dialed, if they're in great locations. Like luxury real estate on Pearl Street that's attached is like flying off the hill, right? All this stuff close downtown, all these really neat locations. You can't change location, right? And so I think people see the value in some of this still. It's just that outdated, bolder product that's 70s, 80s, 90s that is dilapidated, or maybe it had deferred maintenance and it's had special assessments. That gives it this stigma, and people are just they're a little scared of it right now, I think, and it's creating
as
some
they
issue.
rightfully should be. Hey, a
Yeah,
40-year-old home is different than a 40-year-old apartment building.
they are not the
It's a
same.
different product type. So that's where the attach is going to continue to struggle. So your first time home buyers, they can get a screaming deal on a place to get their foot in the door. And I really would say if they can afford the HOA and it makes sense financially, get them in a attached home because they're not going to get a better window of opportunity than right now.
Yeah, they're just going to need to get it for under list price, but they can
But
absolutely
they
go and
will.
negotiate it,
They
right?
will.
I
Yeah,
truly
write
think
those
that some of
offers.
these you can go get stuff that's been sitting on the market for somewhere between 20 and 10% under asking.
And if you really want to get into the weeds with folks, hey, help your clients pull an O&E or even just see what debt's out on the property, and you know how motivated the buyer, or excuse me, how motivated the seller is, because look at that debt hold cost,
We'll
and
always do a warranty deed, right?
you guys can always figure that out. Of hey, what's the existing deed of trust on the property, and you know how motivated they are. And I would say use that as a tool with your agent partners and your agent referrals. If you pull an O&E for $5 and say, hey, they got a lot of debt on this property, I think you might have a better option to just get them to fire sale it. That's a value add that you can use all day long, and that agent will love you.
All right, so let's talk detached single family home price. I think the big thing here is year over year prices have fallen about 3.5% in the detached market, but consistently over the last 12 months, some markets have held pretty strong. Now, Boulder's showing 2.8%. I do think that the luxury market has depreciated, but the median market is really just hanging in there. And that's the bulk of these, right? Places like Louisville, we used to see this number way higher with all the Marshall Fires rebuilds, but keep in mind that's been a lot of our sales for a year now. So that number is starting to pan out back closer to normal. The markets that are struggling the most right now, Erie, because of all the inventory, has a less than favorable term on it at minus 1.6%. And Longmont has been just that golden child in Boulder County, the most stable workhorse of the bunch, just because it's a cheaper product, right? Lower price, and everybody needs a place to live. So the people that are buying are moving to places that are a little more affordable with the cost of money rise, right? So that's detached. Attached, Tucker, tell us about this one.
Absolutely. So this is where we're starting to really see the numbers filter in. Boulder is a little bit skewed because we have these really high end properties that sell and attach. And then we also have the bulk of our other side of the market, which is townhouse and condos. Several of these really high end attached sales, skew the numbers a little bit. So what I say, it's really 2.36%, average increase over the last 2 years or year over year. Not really, but the attached is pushing that market up. Now, when we look at the rest of the county, we can see where the slides are really happening. We can see Lafayette, major struggles there in their attached product, right? It's a nice, desirable location, but not as favorable as other spots. So we're seeing location really factor into this. Longmont attached, still not doing nearly as well. Erie, across the board, Superior, their attached products are just down anywhere from 9% to, 1% in Erie. Erie doesn't have a lot of attached, so that's a goofy number. But really looking at our common areas, we're seeing a decrease in sales price. And it's going to continue for a while until we see a change in our inventory versus demand ratio.
All right, so let's talk sold units. Sold units for the detached market. It was really great last month,
We like
right?
that.
We also had a really rough February, so we finally offset some of that. But basically, all year, we've really outpaced last year by just a little bit in the detached market. It's up 4.4%. I expect it to improve a little bit more before it gets worse. But remember, we had a huge rate drop last September, and our October numbers really benefited from that. So that could change at any time.
Mm-hmm.
But also, don't expect us to outpace last year by 10% right now unless something changes. I do think interest rates eventually will probably come down a little bit, but they're so stable that I would just bank everything on that they're going to be the same today until anything changes, right? And we all know that.
Especially y'all as lenders, right? Look at that September number and then look at October, November, December. Normally we see a consistent slide
We
down
do.
from left to right on this graph from really July and August, just sliding all the way down, and November and December are terrible. It just shows how elastic rates are.
Well, and a quarter
So
point goes a long ways, and a half a point like we saw last September,
so keep your
that's a big
CRMs
one.
up to date, right? Because the second we have a rate drop, those folks are getting back in the market.
Yeah, they're
So
obviously really paying attention. They
they're
did
paying
last year for
attention.
1 month,
Yeah, they
right?
paid attention. So looking at the attached side, still a great month in attached. Pretty much across the board in the county, we're up outside of Longmont in our solds. And it's a good sign to see our solds are still moving forward, even though the prices are dropping. We still are getting solds. Now, looking at this, once again, we see the September, October, November, December. Those are elevated because of that rate situation last year. So just keep in mind, really the point of this is to keep reiterating, keep your buyers close, because the second there's a rate drop, you want to be the first one to talk to them, even before their realtor, and then you have that value add.
All right, last slide. This is our percentage sold price to list price. Keep in mind, this does not include concessions or price drops, and we are now at 98%. That is full point 0.8 less than it was a year ago. The amount of negotiating power that you guys have right now with your buyers is unprecedented, right? I mean, we're talking Great Recession times, right? That was the last, basically dip in the market. So
Mm-hmm.
we're talking 2010. I mean, we haven't seen stuff like this in a long time. So go be aggressive, coach your agents up on it. I mean, these buyers want a deal, go get it, right? We can absolutely see that taking place. Our concessions numbers right now are 60% over or under $1 million, up to like 10,000. So ask for those 2-1 buy downs or ask for that 1% rate buy down. I mean, the world is your oyster, right? This is a great opportunity to go get it. I think the hardest part is finding the buyers, But if you can find the buyers to work with, they are in an awesome spot to buy real estate.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you, Anthony.
Well, thanks for joining us today, and we'll catch you next time. If you have any other questions, needs, reach out to one of us. We're always here to help. Thank you.
Take care, everybody.